Recording.
You know, I was both really delighted and totally terrified driving back from Waco today.
Because it was warm, or?
No, because I decided that because I saw a bunch of trucks all together, it reminded me of that song by C.W. McCall back in the 70s called Convoy.
Yep.
So, I told Siri, open up Spotify and play Convoy. And lo and behold, it started playing. But then, it creates kind of a playlist for you.
Yeah.
And it keeps playing that playlist. Every song in there was an old 70s, pretty much all 70s, 1970s country song that I used to kind of like, but just didn't remember anymore.
Right.
Anywhere from Johnny Horton's
oh yeah,
Battle of 1812.
Oh my God, I love that one. That was from when I was a kid.
Yeah. Mac Davis, throw another log on the fire. Blah blah blah.
I don't know too many country songs.
Well, it was one basically. It was kind of it was just a parody, a comedy thing about. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're
every
way, that song, and then a couple more C.W. McCall. I mean, every one of them for an hour, more than an hour, probably closer to an hour and a half. It did not miss, which means that the singularity has happened. Cyberdyne Industries or Skynet has gone insane or has attained sentience or whatever or something, because it got it just like, how did it know? These were songs I didn't even know I used to like or remember that I used to like. Jerry Reed,
enough people have the chip back that
maybe it's the chip. Maybe the chip was kind of reading me and broadcasting it to Spotify.
Yeah. You got the chip. So my son did a really clever thing today with vaccine, and through some code, which Maddox would appreciate, he derived 666.
Woohoo! There we go.
Yeah, and it was things like CC. You have 100, so you multiply by 100, and he had it all figured out. All figured out. We know what's going on. We know it's it's the apocalypse coming. So anyway, you catch any of the weather report? It was a shit show.
Well, I did the first 40 minutes, but after Danny came on, and like I said, I like Danny and everything, but once he gets involved, it just takes up so much bandwidth of back and forth. And sorry that
mine too. Yeah, and then I really hate when I get to the point where because if I discuss something like that at that rate for about an hour, I bet I use a pound of sugar in my brain, and then I can't put words together anymore.
Yeah,
I'm just done. I should have ended it half an hour before I did it.
It might just throw you into a diabetic coma.
Might throw me into a diabetic coma.
I don't know why, but I have a. I know you're wanting to get to something, but these things keep popping up in my head. Apparently I set up a Google alert for a John Sutherland, a J.D. Sutherland, maybe.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And who is that, and why did I do that?
He is a bio researcher. A bio.
Is he metabolism first?
Sutherland. I don't know what is. That's almost like what we're going to talk about with philosophers. Are you this? Are you this ism or that ism? I'm not sure if Sutherland is. I think he's just a researcher. He probably has a pet theory. But
apparently I need to read synthesis of activated pyrimidine ribonucleotides in prebiotically plausible conditions because that's been cited 1,080 times.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big one, because that's what James Tour was kind of talking about, I think, in his 8th episode or whatever. And
that might be why I put that in there, is to be able to get any new articles or whatever.
Yeah,
look at them.
We can look at that paper. That's really is the more interesting stuff, and probably the stuff we're more capable of. I don't know. Getting into discussion with philosophers is always really good for me if I'm talking to Nicola, or I was talking to Snake is Right, and made some progress. And I've talked to several others on our channel, and you can actually make a little bit of progress. You can say, okay, here's what I mean, here's where I'm going, and there's none of this. Sorry, I meant this. That's a problem. This is a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. Danny's like trying to build like a child trying to build a block house with a rabid squirrel in the room. Like a misbehaved squirrel. Yeah. I don't really know what he's up to, other than that, like at the end,
maybe he's a philosophical anarchist.
I don't know. John came in at the end, okay, and he said, okay, what's happening here is that Speed wants to talk about basically the sense of morality and where it came from, and Danny wants to talk about morality and ethics and all of that, and that made no sense, because John spotted it, and so then Danny called John an idiot on a stream, or a moron, and absolutely refused to just accept that we had a failure to communicate, that we were talking about two different things.
Right.
And that was kind of the way it was from the beginning. I started that stream kind of to bait Danny on an ethics discussion, and then I started talking about ethics instead, or morality, what I think is the, like I said here, the basis of morality, right? On my screen here, basically, that there's a moral base in biology, and
we see that with the studies of primates who won't take a treat because their fellow primate in the cage next to him isn't getting as good a treat.
Right. So there's a sense, and those primates probably don't know the words right or wrong or good
or basis or deontology or whatever.
Any of that shit, right? So all that stuff comes later. So that's a linguistic derivation from this basis in morality. And I push back on that, and I say that is what morality is. I mean, if you're looking for a foundation for morality, or if you're looking to understand how we think about morality, then you first of all have to understand where it came from, where we came from, and how it manifests itself in us.
Right.
And so I say I very much am talking about morality, and it very much is not yet about right and wrong. So,
right. It seems like it would mostly start with the almost unformed image of mom's approval or disapproval or delight or lack of delight in what baby is doing.
Yeah. And that is
very there, baby does this definitely unconscious calculus about whether they're going to keep doing that thing or not.
Yeah.
And if they keep doing that thing, they're small enough to where mama can overpower them. And that becomes, I'm going to use that word, norm. It becomes the norm for him or her. So to me, yes, structurally, there's definitely a neurological component having to do with the early family bond.
Yeah, but underneath all of that, there's some biologically built-in feeling senses, basically. Okay, that come out of the structure of your brain. And on top of that is layered whatever you culturally walk into, and then you develop within your tribe, and you end up with norms. Now, one tribe, the norm may well be eating other tribes.
Right.
And that's where philosophy of morality runs into a bit of a problem, because Now, Sink was right, said something interesting. He said that he bases it on existence, that existence is ultimately the right, or where it derives from. But and I noticed that could bring you above the tribe level, and we could say that in general, there is something right and wrong in the universe, written in the universe, that is absolute and above that. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I believe that, because then you end up with quantification problems, like 6 people existing is better than 1 person existing, and you pull a switch and kill the 1 person, And I'm not sure if that can be made a universal or extended or whatever. So
right.
So what I came up with for my basis in morality here now, I said if you want to derive from that right and wrong, I started to sketch in what's called a characteristic function, which is a 1 and 0. It's basically a binary function.
I remember you attempting to do that and getting all sorts of static.
Oh yeah. So there's like this, there's all of these possible behaviors, in the human, and you're going to be sorting them into right and wrong, but then you got this middle layer here that, let me just look for, you got this middle layer here where philosophers will argue for years, trolley problems and this and that, trying to sort it into right and wrong. So it isn't really a good characteristic function, because we've got other possibilities here, many other possibilities. So very, very difficult to do that. But when you look at words like, and this is also why I pushed it. Okay, we're looking at words like should, which Danny says is almost equal to right. That things that you should do are right. So if X, so you would write that X should equals X right. And I'm not sure if that's the case. I wanted to think about that a little bit. But of course,
well, it depends on once again, depends on what you mean by should. Is it in the context of just mechanic? I don't want to say mechanistically, or it's. Do you have a particular goal in mind? And if you want to accomplish, rapid replacement of your roof, should you do it yourself, or should you hire some people to do it for you?
And this is why I said it's too early, right? Because of this. If we have a tribe of raccoons here, right? And we have another tribe of raccoons here. Okay. Do you think raccoons would ever conceive of or communicate to each other the words should or right?
Well, no, because they can't.
Right. Right. Okay. So our tribe of raccoons can't do it, right? So that obviously it comes later. So tribes of very, very early primates probably were sorting this stuff out too. But now the interesting thing about should is we imagine ourselves as being in time right here, right? Like I exist here, right? So, and then I say, oh, there's something I should do, but that should do is out here. We've imagined it in the future. So we're saying, oh, you should do that next. You should. What was your roof example?
Well, basically, should I attempt to fix it myself, or should I hire other people to do it?
Right, and you do that. Well, there is no roofing going on.
Correct.
No one is roofing. But now there is something that raccoons and early primates do while there's some thinking or cognitive processing that they do, and brain-body processing while they're actually doing the thing, right? So the two things are together right here in time, so when we start talking about, and then the other thing, after you've done this, should, I'll look back and say, oh, that wasn't right, Scott. So now I'm making, if you take a should and what the fuck did I just do? Okay, and you add judgment to it, like we're going to communicate, and we're going to Judgment has two different spellings, doesn't it?
Judgment.
Yeah, but there's also
no. I think there's an E in there. I don't know. We understand what you're talking about.
Okay. Anyway, so now now I'm making a judgment out here about what you did or what you should do, and I'm telling you that it renders as right or wrong. That but that may be my goddamn opinion about your roof.
Right.
So we got a problem. Now we have two different people, and we got a thing between us, and it's both right and wrong, depending on how we're looking at it, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by right and wrong are after. That we have to think a little more about it, because anytime you're talking about right and wrong, you're obviously talking about time and in the future and human planning and all of that stuff, what we should do, how we should do things. And I think philosophers of ethics want to start with things like, right and wrong. And I still don't know if should is equivalent to right, if we could say SX equals RX, or if we should say, like Danny originally said, I thought, basically S of X implies RX. Okay, that's a different thing. So that somehow, if I should do X, then X is right. Then X is the right thing to do. So I think, that's different than equality. So that's what I was pushing back on with Danny, and he would not. He is just so much interested in. I think more interested in being right than having a conversation.
Yeah, I don't know what his motives are, but
I don't know. But anyway,
it creates a lot of static and noise rather than clarification. Maybe this should and right and looking forward and looking backward might also be best exemplified by really kind of the dilemmas that I recall, and it's probably from my readings of the guy who wrote I'm going to have to the fourth chimpanzee or something like that. What was his name? Diamond.
Yeah, can't quite remember the name of the guy.
But he also wrote a book. The fourth chimpanzee. I'm going to that one just to find the.
Or is this the third chimpanzee?
Oh, maybe it's the third chimpanzee. Yeah.
Oh, the man, Jared Diamond.
Jared Diamond, yeah. But he wrote a bunch of other books. Guns, Germs, and Steel. And then he also wrote one called Collapse, but he studied a lot of cultures. I think he's an anthropologist, but apparently the Maori, those tribes, or it could be some other tribe. The Maori are in New Guinea or someplace like that.
Yeah.
And for some of these tribes, if you were walking down a trail in the jungle and somebody from another tribe was approaching you from the other direction, your considerations would be, should I kill them, or should I, find out, if the fish are biting or whatever down on that end of the trail is, and so or maybe did the latest bunch of coconuts grow or something. I don't know if they have coconuts in New Guinea. I'm just using that as kind of an example. So there is a shouldn't, and I don't know if they consider the option of killing them right or wrong, but there are reasons why you're at war with some and might want to kill them, or there's sort of an ally or even a frenemy, and you might be justified in killing them, or maybe you wouldn't be. And so I could see a Maori out there deciding, well, I need to, bonk that guy in the head or toss a spear into their side, and then having that same conversation afterward. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. Right. Because now they're going to get all mad and start raiding us.
Yeah. And now that's what I mean by it's a conversation that becomes after and it becomes very complicated because you've got your tribe, right? And there's a whole bunch of things that you may have developed inside of your tribe. You know, these shoulds and shouldn'ts and oughts and rights and wrongs and all of that about how you should act. And then you got another tribe. And when you meet that other tribe, or say you meet a rabbit, okay, that you're going to eat, okay, that's an entirely different tribe. And you're going to have an entirely different, more of a biological sense of morality. If you meet that man walking toward you, you may have fear. Fear that he's going to kill you, and then, you know, what's right and wrong. And your tribe may or may not judge you as moral for having killed him rather than ask him which if the fish are biting.
Right.
And so we have in each tribe now, his tribe may have all sorts of, you know, different things that are going on that they believe in. And when the two tribes get together and they start to infringe on the same territory, they can merge as one, but they're going to have to sort all this shit out, right? And
right.
So I mean, the thing is that and that goes back to this characteristic function I was talking about. There's no fucking way that two different tribes that occupy two entirely different territories that came up in two entirely different histories are going to have the same set of rights and wrongs. This is going to map differently.
Yeah.
So then we get to, you know, relative morality and all of that stuff. Well, my pushback on that is that when these two tribes get together, the thing that helps them sort it is that objective biological basis in morality, that they don't want violence, they don't want harm, they don't want to feel pain, they want to get along. So when these two tribes merge, they go back to that basic biology, and they come up with this merger, you know, where now they have entirely new features, right? And that's happening to us globally right now.
Right. Yeah, we do become concerned about you know, there's like having water rights, but then what if the folks in the town upriver decide that they want to dam up the river? Well, that's going to affect people downriver. Do you just say this is mine, or think about the good of the whole and how to?
Yeah.
And people still get it wrong. There's still err on the side of making sure I get control of resources, and they have to come to me. You know, powers involved. In other words, where there's a perceived shortage of resources.
Yeah, but if those two tribes are to merge together and become one tribe, they have to pretty much sort all that out. And now we have a county, you know, a sheriff's department, and we have laws, and we have, you know, regions, and all that. So look at what we're doing. We're colliding with other nations right now, like China and you know, the Middle East and all of that. And there are still things that bind us. Like, we all care about our lives, we care about our happiness, we care about full bellies, we do care about our children. And that goes back to this biological basis. So we do have some grounding in the fact that we're humans. But now suppose the raccoons, you know, evolve for another million years and they're intelligent. You know, we got the same problem all over again of dealing with a new species or whatever.
Right.
So that's kind of what I was trying to sort out. And you know, I am not a trained philosopher, and me
neither.
Don't do well in debating philosophers because I can't, you know, I don't think on my feet very well when I'm in when I'm in a fight, verbally. Okay. I just don't do well. So it's really hard to encounter somebody like Danny and try to have a reasonable conversation about this sort of stuff. But I think these things are very important today that we're trying to put these together. And and the other thing that I push back on is that you can take all of these little things right here, right? And now we could rate them. Okay, we're rationalizing about what is right and what is wrong. And we could, you know, write a little book here, you know, and basically put everything in that book and write it down. And we say, okay, that book is the magic book, and we're going to adhere to that book.
Right.
We're going to adhere to that book for 2,000 years. And then 2,000 years hence, the world changes and we're still adhering to that book, that's what I call evil. So when we crossed over and we started out with this judgment of right and wrong, and we started out with the judgment of what we should and shouldn't do, all that stuff, that is rationalization. And that's what I call rationalizing morality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And rationalizing morality, rationalizing morality ends up becoming a little bit evil because it becomes fixed in our mind, saying that, that this is always going to be correct, or saying that
in defense of the book and the rules, rather in defense of the people behind it. My gosh, yeah. I'm sounding almost like Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody made the comment that the
Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, that kind of thing.
On the stream today, somebody made the comment when the Christians were talking about, what's right and right, all that stuff, that they probably would have considered Jesus a liberal, a snowflake liberal who wanted to ruin society by social justice. He was the original social justice warrior or whatever. But when you tend to write down a rationalization like that, you end up with things like, this race is bad and that race is bad, which is what happened back in Germany in 1940s, right?
Right.
And you end up with this, and then you end up convincing everybody that's what's right and that's what's wrong, and here's what we should do and here's what we shouldn't do, right? Mm-hmm. And then you got a problem, So
some countries are shithole countries, and then you have the white European-based countries.
Yeah. So like I said, anything ridiculous. What was Danny's charge that I said morality was not about right and wrong. And I said a bunch of others. The other problem with talking about this is when we talk about it, we use the very words that we're trying to figure out, like right, wrong, shouldn't. Like I shouldn't have continued the conversation. Why did I use the word should if I don't believe morality is about should when I'm having a conversation about morality? Well, I don't really have any goddamn choice but to communicate with, for us to communicate with each other using these folk psychological terms.
Right.
We've been accustomed to. So I don't know. I just don't think anything I was saying was that crazy or that wild. And
no.
I'm getting a whole lot of pushback from Jerry Penna and a whole bunch of other people. So. And I don't quite understand why. I mean, I'm not sure what it was, not sure where I went wrong. I will be corrected by one of them people. I don't think I'm willing to talk to Danny unless he gets some Valium and slows down a little bit.
Yeah, and that's probably why he's resisting the
one-on-one.
The one-on-one. Because it makes you more amenable to changing your mind. And I just feel like he's got an agenda of some sort, whether he realizes it or not. Like, he's trying to protect his thesis. He uses that thesis a lot. Like, he tried it out on Atheist Experience with that time when he called and talked to Matt Dillahunty. I re-listened to it. I thought, this is exactly what he's been trying to push on us. So maybe it's in some paper that he's turned in for his professor, and he wants everybody to believe it like he believes it.
Yeah, the new atheists can't do philosophy. The new atheists can't think. They're not rational.
Or he's just decided to hell with these people on Speed of Sound channel. I'll just ingratiate myself to these theists, and so he's doing all these things. Or he might be doing some sort of kung fu like thing, and he may be actually trying to get more hits for you on YouTube, more likes, because what better way to drum up business than to run some publicity on your channel, and that on his channel, and that makes your channel get more hits.
Yeah, well, that could be, but I think he definitely has an agenda, and it isn't just against Speed of Sound or our channel. It's against atheists in general, and he talks about it every time he goes on a Christian channel, that he has this whole thing about, the atheists can't think, ho, 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 let's laugh at them with the Christians. He does this every goddamn night.
Yeah.
And I listen to them. Okay. And when you listen to them, you're like, wait a minute, what is going on here exactly? What is your point? All atheists are idiots? Well, if you're an atheist, then why all YouTube atheists are idiots? But then he's got a few that he'll say are his favorites. But what in the hell are you trying to do? If you're trying to make us think, well, yeah, you've done that, Danny. You've done a good job of making us consider things. And
or maybe he's trying to become like the next Lee Strobel.
Maybe he's going to
realize how bankrupt atheism was and became a theist.
Oh shit, man, that would be a good plan for the future, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
You could do that. You could say, "Man, I felt so bad.
We should
I had to become a theist."
Yeah, Danny straightened me out, and then I saw God, and Jesus came to visit me in my bedroom, and all that shit. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure how much further I want to go with thinking about morality and stuff like that, other than.
Well, apparently, I haven't read enough philosophy about morality to be able to talk about it.
I've delved into it a couple of times, and every time I have, I've gotten the feeling that all they're doing is they'll say, "Okay, here's this theory, and now let's refute this theory, and here's this theory, let's refute this theory." But by the time and then you'll read the conclusion of the book, and he seems to have some idea, but it is never clear how the fuck he got there. And then you go read another book that's refuting that one, and you just get this feeling that, you know what, I'm wasting my fucking time.
Yeah,
I'll just go figure this stuff out for myself. And so I came up with my little naturalistic fantasy here about, the basis of morality. But the interesting thing that I think that we talked about is that we have this, and I'm just shitty at drawing brains, kind of brains kind of look like that, and they have this brain stem and all that bullshit. Okay, so the interesting thing about it is that we got this, this olfactory thing that goes right directly in our brain, and it is just really interesting to me. And I think Steven Pinker said it in many cultures that the words for right and wrong are stink and garbage and all that shit. And so it always seems to be this olfactory thing. But then
you want a girl?
Yeah,
you disgust me.
Yeah, you garbage clowns or trash clowns or whatever.
You're a dirty girl.
Yeah, dirty. Yeah, dirty. And then you have this enteric thing, which is very important going back before mammals even, that we needed to know what the hell tasted good and what tasted bad. And what made us sick and what made us, not sick. Right. So if we became nauseated, we felt this horrible sickness in our stomach. And then if we go and do something really bad and we feel real guilty, we feel sick and sick to our stomach. I feel sick to my stomach because I did that, right? I mean, there's a reason why we have those words are associated with bodily function.
Right.
Because this shit goes right straight up here in what is called the limbic system. And the limbic system projects to the cortex, in many, many different ways. So that if you become angry, your limbic system will project only to neurons that deal with anger and violence. And that's why when you start, they say, "Oh, go punch a bag if you're angry," but it actually makes you more angry.
Yeah.
As Damasio would point out, this limbic system, okay, what happens here, he calls a emotion, okay? So the juice squirter is an emotion. So you've got these neurotransmitters going up into your cortex and activating certain parts of it. But then this part of your cortex connects to this part, and what that creates is a feeling. Mm-hmm. A feeling is something that's closer to thinking or to thought. And that feeling goes back into your limbic system and it shoots more juice up. And so you have this cycle, right? So you get angrier and angrier and angrier.
No, I'm sorry. I must have. Are those E's endorphins or enteric?
No, emotions.
Emotions. Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So he calls that an emotion. He calls the raw, anger, hunger, whatever he calls those emotions.
Uh-huh.
And for a long time, I got those two backwards because they're kind of interchangeable. But then a feeling, okay, so an emotion would be like anger, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it goes up into the cortex, and a feeling would be like resentment. It's richer. It has some thinking behind it. Oh, I'm angry at Joe because he's a
maybe you're putting some causality in there.
Yeah, and maybe some causality too.
I resent you because you kept me from looking good at the party. Looking like the alpha male at the party or something.
Right. Yeah. There's all sorts of thinky things up here, that you've added onto it. Whereas this right here is very raw, and we all know what that feels like. And then what happens is this feeling will actually projects back into the limbic system to certain nuclei in certain areas, and it feeds back into that system. And it can feed into it. I think most of the time it's a positive feedback, so it gets worse. But sometimes there are ways to break the cycle so that you can get out of it. If there wasn't, of course, you'd never recover from one emotion.
Well, I think if you go with the punching bag analogy, if you're angry and you go punch something like one of those hanging big thick punching bags, not the little bags you do your handwork with, but if you go do that and you're angry and you're thinking about what's making you angry, that's going to feed into that feedback loop. But if you try to clear your mind and punch the bag, well, you're likely to create endorphins because you're getting exercise out of it and working on clearing your mind. So if you clear your mind and do something aerobic or at least heavy exertion, then you're probably going to produce a different set of chemicals that are more pleasurable than the anger.
Yeah. Yeah, if you went for a walk instead.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Instead of actually fighting. But anyways, so this is what I would describe as morality. And not just the sense of morality, but the very, very basis of morality and where it all came from. So I think this is the basis. And so I would double down and say that, yes, I'm talking about morality, and I haven't yet talked about right and wrong. I did up here where I showed you how after you start thinking and talking about morality and having a language about morality and having tribes exchanging information about morality, then you need words like should, shouldn't, and right and wrong. But prior to that, this is where it all begins right here.
And Danny seems to think that maybe he's more of a rationalist than he likes to let on.
Yeah.
In that rationalism, you don't look at the world and how things work. You don't look at data that has been collected and observations made in the field. You try to get to a conclusion simply based on words.
You reason it out.
Yeah, but you might want to say thought, but I don't know that thought and words are necessarily the same thing. I think it's more words. And that's where we get into trouble, is that language systems are limiting.
Yes.
And those symbols can get in the way. It's almost like it's best not to think about your language, but then again, if you don't think about your language, how are you going to improve yourself?
Yeah, if you don't ask questions like is should equal to right, or does it imply right, and questions like that, and also what Danny was saying is that it's like I'm talking about squares and I don't want to talk about sides. I'm talking about morality and I don't want to talk about right and wrong, and I think that we're just wrong because we can talk a whole lot about what organisms do down here with brains before we ever have to use words. Brains.
All right.
And we'll end it there. And I think we're going to premiere this right now and then do Sonata afterward. What do you think?
That's fine with me.
Because I don't know. And then Danny can do a comeback video and pick on me and say, oh, Speed used a word here. He said should, and he lied and he contradicted himself. Well, yeah, I contradicted myself according to him. But most of what I was trying to do is just fucking repel this rabid squirrel, just get the rabid squirrel off my leg, just scrape it off my leg and get it to go away. so I could play my blocks. Anyway, we'll end it.
All righty. Excellent.